Welcome to the Trailblazers. I'm your host, Perry Rarick. The purpose of the Trailblazers is to share with you interesting discussions and thought provoking discussions I have with trailblazing business leaders. They're innovative, they're experts at what they do, and they're not afraid to challenge the status quo when their vision takes them to a horizon of promise, something better out there that they're trying to achieve. My Trailblazer guest lives up to all of that. My Trailblazer guest today is Greg Ippolito. He's returning. Uh, we did an interview just about a year ago, I think is when we first met Greg. He is the president and creative director of EMA, Ippolito Media Arts. It's a B2B digital agency outside of Philadelphia. For over 25 years, Greg has developed award-winning campaigns and marketing strategies for a bunch of clients, and they're as varied as Hyundai, Shire Pharmaceuticals, Vertex, Sony Electronics, and Premier Dental. He's a popular speaker at various industry events. He just did that recently, where he often speaks about digital branding and lead generation. He's a contributor to publications including Adweek, Marketing Daily, Technically Philly, love that name, and Chief Marketer. He's also a prolific writer. We're going to talk about his website and connecting with him on LinkedIn. Pay attention to what he writes and talks about because it's creative, it's entertaining, and it makes sense. You're learning at the same time. So I encourage you to do that. Greg, welcome back to the Trailblazers.
It is great to be back, Perry. Thank you. And so I'm excited to run it back, as it were.
Run it back. I love that. Okay. So Greg and I, we've known each other, as I said, we met about a year ago, maybe a little bit more, and we connect regularly, whether it's through each other's LinkedIn presence, or we fire off some emails, and we occasionally have phone calls. It's something I look forward to, Greg, talking to you. And this is how I'm going to
Likewise.
share with how our conversations kind of start off. It's like, well, Greg, what's on your mind these days? That's what happened. And that's what led to, I think we should be on the Trailblazers again. So that's what led to this discussion because Greg is one of those guys in the industry that thinks more deeply about the world around us. He's the marketer's marketer, the businessman's businessman. He thinks more deeply
Wow.
about what we're up to, and he pays attention. He's curious, eyes wide open.
I appreciate that. I hope this interview will live up to that because now you've set the bar pretty high.
Oh, that's it. You'll exceed it. You'll jump over it.
All
Okay.
right, let's see.
All right. So when we caught up, you said silos. Silos are a
Mhm.
problem. Silos have been a problem. Whether it's lack of cross-functional integration, marketing and sales and marketing. That gap has been a problem. They sometimes live in silos. I remember some issues years ago when the pharmaceutical industry, it was mandated that they had to have certain technology to track material through the supply chain,
Mhm.
and they were all adopting that, but they weren't, the operators and the business leaders weren't talking to the technical guys,
Yeah,
and they ran into all kinds of problems with compatibility. So it's always a problem. You introduced it in a different way, and I wanted to ask you about that. Well, that's where we'll start.
sure.
So there's a new kind of silo separation taking place. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, this is nothing new when you hear from marketing teams that different departments are working in silos, as you said, Perry. It's been going on for decades and decades across industries. Within marketing, though, a lot of marketing teams mistake coordination for integration. So, for instance, they'll run LinkedIn, email, display, paid search, etc., all promoting the same campaign and call it omni-channel, which is a little bit of a red flag word for me. Omni-channel is not necessarily integration. It could just be multiple channels kind of marching in parallel. Y- When teams are working in silos, their strategy is in silos, their data is in silos, and sometimes their messaging can be siloed as well. We trust that everyone's going to follow the same brand guideline and be on the same page, but that rarely happens. So the real problem here is that your data, messaging, and channel mix aren't compounding across a system. So teams chase KPIs in silos. Channels are optimized independently. Sales resets the conversation whenever they get on the phone, et cetera. So you get a lot of activity, but zero synergy, for lack of
Yeah.
a less used word. The fix that we internally here is what we call a digital brand flywheel, which is more of a strategy that can be applied in any number of ways. But for us, it's where every touch point and every team informs the other. Every interaction creates usable intelligence, which could be shared by others, other channels, other teams. So the entire system is getting smarter over time. And that's where your ROI really hockey sticks.
Yeah. You started by saying coordination and integration are not the same. And we don't want to diminish the importance of coordination. Certainly. But I love how you trace this all the way to KPIs. This isn't just
Mhm.
something that happens at the beginning or during execution of a marketing campaign, but at some point you want to measure results. And
Yeah,
if you get it wrong at the beginning, your results are not going to make any sense. They're going to all be siloed as well.
right. Yeah, no, just to give you a practical real life, for instance, we have a client that we have regular status calls with and on a lot of social media related activity. And we were invited a while ago to speak with their marketing automation team, so email flow, to kind of see what was going on over there. So we have our own content calendar for social, and then we were looking at this content calendar over here that from the email team. And those two teams talk periodically, not enough. But when we looked at what these two were doing, um, it was team one had a list of touch points that they were going to roll out for topic A. And the email team, team two, also had two or three emails that they were going to roll out during the same time period. But what the messages were not coordinated. The timing of those
Uh,
messages were not coordinated. The performance of, say, what was happening on social was in no way going to make it over to this team that they can grab insights, or vice versa. Like, you're sitting in the same building, you have access, your strategy, well, and this is the point. They're coordinated. They're coordinating. They're making sure that vaguely they're hitting the same messaging points on the same topics, roughly the same time, even to the same rough audiences, but they're missing so much more. Just the fact that they're not sharing data across teams. So, that, like, what if they noticed that there was a certain level of engagement or drop off or interest in this call to action, but not this one on the email that could have informed something on the social side that could have improved their strategy. And then again, vice versa. You can imagine just those two teams talking with regard to that particular topic for that particular audience could have been much, much better than, but they felt because they're coordinated that everything's good. And in their defense, um, coordination between teams, the fact that two teams talk sometimes is a lot more than most organizations are doing.
yes.
But that, like, if they're going to talk about coordination, if they're going to call that omni-channel, that's great. That's a starting point, but you're nowhere near true integration. And true integration is where the best of the best of the best brands are crushing everybody else. So I'll take a pause there.
Yeah. So as you describe that, I go back to my career in the military as well as I applied this in business. The term we used is synchronize. We synchronized, which meant
Yeah.
it was an activity in time. And
Yes.
if you had, if you had, you know, functional teams, that don't talk on a regular basis, you were operating on the same synchronization matrix. So if you were operating inside essentially a spreadsheet, we were doing it mostly manually. Now it can be done much more easily. But you were operating in that same planning space and execution space. So you had to see what everybody else was doing. But that's really only part of the answer. that's that's kind of the start point. So when you're working with a client and you run into the case study you talked about
Mhm.
that you offered, there's a behavioral part of that. How do you get people to understand uh, the possibilities, the opportunities that they're missing out on if they would just do something even a little bit like what you're describing?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of resistance, as you can imagine, because I mean,
So I gotta pause. I love how you said that. You even said it slow. That's like,
it's true. And to be fair to marketers, especially in 2026, budgets have been shrinking. AI has led to a lot of layoffs. It's been a lot of sink or swim type of mentality. It's been a whole lot of do more with less. So they're running around putting out fires. 12 hours worth of work in every 8-hour day, right? So to ask them to like take on another thing or to implement especially when it's coming like from an organization like mine, like an outside agency is going to tell us some more stuff we have to do now. Yeah, okay, I'll
yeah,
get to that one. However, when you can appeal to the better angels of their nature, um, there's an opportunity here where, first of all, there's a potential for less work to happen. Also, in terms of, I talked about, doing more with less. Um, this is the type of thing where every CMO, every VP of marketing is being pushed for better leads, more growth,
yeah,
more attributable ROI, et cetera. So it's like when everyone on their team again is trying to do 12 hours worth of work in 8 hours and run around like crazy and doesn't have time for another meeting, where is the edge coming from? Where is the growth coming from? They're just trying to get done what's already on a much too long to-do list. We can go in and say 90% of what, and they don't have budget for anything else to bring in any more people or anything like that. We can take, in most cases, 90% of what you need in terms of manpower, in terms of technology, in terms of channels, media budget, you're already using it. It's just a matter of looking at it the right way. And it's almost like, poor metaphor, but like in The Wizard of Oz, when all of a sudden it goes from black and white or sepia tone to color, it's like, oh, the, this was there, but now we can see it's like that. It's not, you don't have to
yeah.
build Oz, but if you have someone that can help you see it, it's like, oh, and so you can get to that next level without increasing your media budget by 10 or 20% or bringing in another agency or bringing in this specialist or hiring 5 more FTEs. What you have to do this is there. So, and to throw out another statistic, um, in case studies within IMA and outside of IMA across the board, pretty consistent. When you're looking at 3 or more channels that are truly integrated, not just coordinated, but integrated, conversion, so for lead gen, for instance, or for sales, goes up 494%. So again, the same stuff, but you're making it work synergistically, and you're looking at almost 500% increase in conversion. And right now, we're in a world where lead gen's always really important to B2B marketers. Almost 80% of all lead gen activity does not convert to revenue. 80%. That's an enormous waste of money. So it's not only a stopping of the bleeding, but it's an opportunity to, again, overworked CMOs, overworked marketing leaders of all kinds that need to grow but are just pulling their hair out because they're overworked and their teams are overworked. This is a fantastic way to do it. You just have to have the openness to, take a half hour to discuss it and see what's possible.
How does it start? Okay, so It's a big change.
Yeah.
There's a behavioral change. It's a different way of thinking about this, and it probably can't be all done at once. So
No.
how can it? And then we'll move to our second question. But
Sure, sure, sure.
how do you get started moving in the right direction to achieve some of these benefits that you're talking about?
Well, this is where an outside consultant or an outside agency can really be helpful because we have a rigorous process that we've built. We've done this multiple times. And we're able to come in, and as long as we know who the key stakeholders are and basically who can give us access to what in each department that is of concern, we go and do it. We take care of it. We get the data we need. We get the messaging strategy. You don't if you're the head of the demand gen team and you need us to coordinate not just with your team but with social, with PR, with event marketing, all the we handle it. Our team handles it, and then we bring you all together to show you. All right, this is where we're finding opportunity. Um, so on an individual team basis, we need a little bit of time from this one, a little bit of time from this one, et cetera. But we make that happen. We get it done. We send 27 emails and 15 phone calls or whatever it takes to get that meeting scheduled because you got to follow up and follow up. But we get it done. And in the end, when everybody comes to the table and sees again the color that's now available,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's like, oh man, we're glad we did this. And then
Yeah.
that's the starting point of everything that follows.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to reveal. I don't want you to reveal too much of the magic,
Yeah, I
but
won't.
you may. And so I'm. This is a different type of relationship with an agency. This isn't an agency of record that you kind of turn everything over and it goes into a black box. And
Right.
this is a very outcomes based relationship.
Yeah. Again, it's taking all of the strategy and data and messaging, all of the good work that all of these different teams are doing. And obviously, this is much more something that's built for larger organizations. If you're a small or an SMB type of company that has, a four-person marketing team, it can still be done, but there's a lot less data and strategy and et cetera to deal with. But if you're, a publicly traded company and there's all this stuff going on all these teams, yeah, you don't need or want or probably one agency coming in and taking everything and black boxing it. You're already running all that work with your teams. You have that in-house capability and industry knowledge and all that. The problem is the siloing, and there's no way you're going to figure that out. Not no way, but it's very unlikely you're going to figure that out internally unless you internally hire some sort of task force to go between all these different teams and figure out how to coordinate this stuff. But again, this is something we've done, we know how to do, we have a process for it, and we can figure it out for you. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's a much different relationship. Those types of relationships with clients are much different than the typical type of relationship we had even 6 years ago, the
Yeah.
pre-COVID era, where there was a lot of like agency of record stuff, or you would be brought in to do content for this channel or whatever and work like as an adjunct to a marketing team of some kind. And there's still that type of work as well, but we're finding that this is an offering that can really exponentially jump things. And it's something that so many organizations desperately need. And they just don't know about it yet. So we're
Yeah.
trying to really get the word out that, this is a solution that is so unbelievably cost effective. So such an unbelievably light lift on you personally, the marketing leader, that, yeah, we're happy to
Yeah.
come in and have those conversations.
So I said I was going to move on to the second question, and I'm not, because something you said kind of made me think about something else.
Okay.
Um, this problem is well disguised when it exists inside an organization. You said black and white to color. I actually like that,
Okay.
but how? But it's disguised. There are symptoms. As a matter of fact, everybody, look at omni-channel, we're doing all these things.
Yeah.
We've got social media, but it's not synchronized or integrated, as you said.
Correct.
How would it, what are some symptoms that if I've got some things going on in my company, I need to, okay, I've got a problem and I'm not even aware of it.
That's a great question. I, I've found that it's not so much that they perceive a problem because a lot of marketing teams have themselves convinced. That sounds cynical. It's not they have themselves convinced. They're looking at, like I said, they're looking at their metrics in silos. So if they're getting great efficiency on their
Yeah.
campaigns, if they're getting great open rates, if they're getting great engagement rates on social, whatever the case may be, um, then it's kind of like everything's fine.
Yeah.
Where we usually see the opportunity to have a conversation about this is what I talked about a little while before, which is like, okay, everything's working well. The numbers are pointing the right direction, but we're getting pressure from on high that we need to grow X percentage, or that our lead gen quality isn't strong enough, or or we're not getting enough MQLs, and even the MQLs we're getting, not enough of them are becoming SQLs, and we need to do better. We need to do, and we don't have any more budget. We don't have any more, we can't hire any more people. In fact, we've laid off X percent of our workforce in the last 6 9 months. So when those conversations happen where it's like, and usually there's kind of despair. It's kind of like, what do you want me to do? And kind of throwing hands up in the air, like, you won't give me any more money, you won't give me any more help. All our numbers look good. Like, if you want to go, I guess I never really thought about it before until you got me talking about it, Perry. But I guess I would guess that the default thinking, the subconscious thinking is like, growth comes from more people, more money. And without that, what do you want from me? You
Yeah.
know? But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like everything could look good. Everything could be, again, deceptively, because when you're looking at it in silos.
Yeah.
Like, think about for anyone who's read or watched Moneyball. For the longest time, every general manager in baseball thought this guy's good because his batting average is this and his defensive rating is this. And it's like, yeah, but there are other numbers we could be looking at that. And then once someone unlocks that door, it's just a matter of like, you need to find a team like the A's that are like, we're never going to get past where we are if we don't do something
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
And then we can come in and say, all right, we have something different for you.
Yeah.
So it's looking for those opportunities more than it is um, trying to solve a specific problem. Because again, I think a lot of those problems get hidden by positive KPIs and positive metrics on reports.
Yeah. We could go on and on. I think we'll talk more about this subject. This is really an interesting one. When you brought it up to me, it just, yeah, it's a hard one to identify, a hard one to recognize, a hard one to admit to. We've got this
Sure.
problem. And then, before you ever begin
A
to,
hard one to know exists.
yeah, yeah. All right. We're going to go to the next big problem.
Sure.
But the first step is, identify the problem and then you can start moving in the right direction. So it was probably 20 years ago, maybe more, that people started talking about B2B buying teams are much bigger than we think.
Hmm.
Buyer's journey starts much sooner than anybody wants to realize.
Sure.
And that is even getting more and more complicated. The teams are getting bigger. They're hard to identify. I like to look at there is some studies that come out every year that talks about thought leadership, but the buying team and how big they are, and hidden buyers and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I really really value talking about that. It's Edelman is the company that does the thought leadership report. I think one will be
Yes.
coming out this summer, a new one, and they're always being able to share new insights. Okay, but you are running into this like a diverse nature, not only the size, but a more diverse nature of the team. And I think what you said to me is that you're gonna, there are people in these organizations with titles that don't line up with your target audience that are have a big impact, that are influencing the buying team. So tell me about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'll start with a scenario. Okay. You're the VP of marketing in a certain section of an organization, and you know you need to bring in a certain technology to solve a problem. Let's just say you have to buy a widget, you have to license a widget to solve problem X, just to make it simple. And you've been getting content from you are this widget company's ICP. You've been targeted, so you're getting LinkedIn content, you're showing up, you're seeing display ads. When you search different things, you're getting inbounds to their properties, etc. um, and you go to your CMO or your CEO and you say, hey, I have this problem, I'm thinking about buying, this widget. Have you heard of company X? If the person across the table you're talking to is like, yes, yeah, I've seen their stuff, they're really interesting, that's the beginning of a sale. If they, though, say to you, like, no, I never heard of them, that means you got to sell that guy. Then, as you go down the line, you're going to have to sell the finance person. If it has to be integrated into your stack, you're going to have to talk to the IT person, and who knows who else, procurement. And so now you, the VP of marketing, might have to sell seven, eight, nine people. Just right. So, and that's where deals die. So, and that sort of traditional audience targeting, find your IC, define your ICP, and especially in the digital age, the last 15 years, the idea that if you can measure it, you can optimize it. So the reduction of wasted spend should be paramount. We should get to a point where if you're doing your job perfectly, you're not wasting a single dollar pushing an ad to the wrong person, right? To a non-ICP. But we're finding that, like you mentioned, that Edelman study and other sorts of studies, you really need to influence the entire buyer group. In fact, that same Edelman study you mentioned argued that brands are 20 times more likely to sell when everybody within a buyer group is aware of their brand, is familiar with the brand.
Oh
Going
yeah.
back to the hypothetical
Yep.
I mentioned. So yeah, this is kind of we're trying to talk our clients through not doing such narrow targeting of ICPs, but really trying to be more considerate of, like, yeah, there's the all important generating of the lead eventually over a very long sales cycle when you're talking about B2B. But once you've generated that lead and even had some positive conversations, there's a whole lot more selling that has to happen. If all you had to do was sell that one person, great. But there's a whole lot more selling that has to go on. And if you've created the strategy around persuading brand wise, persuading the full buyer group, then once those secondary conversations start happening, selling is going to become a whole lot easier instead of roadblock, etc.
Yeah. One of the common problems that I hear from clients at Life Science Connect, these would be advertisers that work with Life Science Connect,
Hmm.
is they're sitting on a lot of engagement data. Everybody is. If you're on your game, you have a lot of engagement data, but they don't
Sure.
know how to discern what it means in a way that follow-up becomes effective. So following up with all these people. But as you describe this buying group and the diverse nature of the buying group, everybody's got their own priorities. Precision is required in the follow-up. We're both subjected to this. We have an interest.
Yeah.
We see some article. We realize it's a solution provider of some sort. We look at, in order to get to the article, we have to fill out some contact information, right?
Sure.
Because it's gated. Then we get to the article, and then we're now part of a drip campaign. All
Yeah.
right. And we get what everybody else gets. There's no precision in
Right.
determining who is this person and what would they like from me if they
That's
were
exactly
interested.
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how so you said the sales job, we're just now starting that, and it's going to look a lot different. There's a lot more work. What does that look like when you have this diverse buyer group? You know who they are, and then the follow
Yeah.
up with them.
It's difficult, but it's easy. So I'll start with what's easy. Yeah, it's easy in the sense that your target, your ICP, is still your target. Like that's the person who you have to convert to a lead. And lead generation is a lot more complicated than say like an awareness campaign,
Yep.
right? I mean, you need to like move them through the persuasion ladders, and you have to consider that you don't know when you start where they are in the funnel. They might be middle, they might be top, right? You have to put together dynamic multi-channel integrated campaigns that are moving them through the funnel at all times. But when you're talking about the other people within the buyer group, it's really much more of a brand awareness campaign. Again, that Edelman metric I mentioned,
Yep.
awareness is what's required. It's when, hey, have you ever heard of these guys? Yes, and they seem interesting. That's all you need from the rest of the people on the buyer group to smooth those conversations and smooth that process. You don't need to sell them, you don't need to convert them beyond that. So it's a matter of like, if I am going to again concern myself with the finance person, that person in this buyer group, I don't need them to convert. I don't need them to fill out a form. I don't need to, I just need to make sure that the messaging strategy to that person is going to, and this is where it gets hard. It, this this much hard. It's not it's not that hard. It's just personalizing those messages so that they're not getting the same drip campaign that everybody else is getting. They're not getting social media posts and emails that like they don't care about. It's just geared towards their concerns. That's, it takes some effort to create a communication strategy across 8 different people within a buyer's group, for instance. But it's this hard. It's not, I mean, the hard part is the lead gen strategy for the ICP, but like that's something that you're doing anyway. It probably needs some help, but that's something that that's all your focus. So spreading it out to the greater buyers group and creating a brand awareness campaign, especially if you're doing it, as we're very fortunate, doing it on behalf of some great brands that already have a name out there, and you're more doing the game of familiarity breeds trust.
Mm.
It's very doable. It's just, I find that like with this, as with most things in marketing, it's not so much that you have to be a genius or that you have to have some sort of magic wand technology or anything like that. It's usually like a lot of common sense and just a lot of hard work. If you know you have to personalize across 8 channels, that's a lot. But you have a team, you have yourself, like put together a to-do list and get it done, as opposed to ignoring it or putting it on the back burner and then it never gets done.
Very much related to where we started. It's just it's just an integration of functions, integration of, messages going to the right people, have visibility
Yeah.
on all of that. Yeah. So, all right. What else, Greg? What? Every time I talk to you, it's like, oh, that blew my mind. But something you always say every time we talk, this is hard work.
It's
If it
hard work.
took genius, I would not be involved in it in any way. But so you have to have common sense, but it's hard. And
Yeah.
you have to kind of sign up for that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And like I said before, when your team, and I'm sympathetic to it, when your team is running
Yeah.
around putting out fires all day and pulling their hair out because there's so much to do, um, a good partner can go a long way. And not to sound self-serving, but seriously, like if you can find someone who can help you out, who's responsive, who knows what they're doing, who can do a lot of that hard work, and can give you a great return on your
Yeah.
spend, is really efficient at what they do, that's worth everything. So
A different type of agency relationship or a partnership.
I like to think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it is. Yeah, it's a little non-traditional, but much more
yeah.
effective. Well, Greg, great catching up with you again.
Likewise,
Really,
Perry.
I always love these conversations, and I think we'll do it again. And so, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Oh, well, Easiest thing is our website, ima314.com. You could check us out on LinkedIn as well. If you'd like to reach me directly, it's Greg with one G on the end, Greg, at ima314.com. I'm always happy to hear from listeners and hear their questions, etc. So hit me up.
Yeah. Greg Ippolito with an I. And you're also very active on LinkedIn. And
Yeah,
I follow you and really enjoy your content on LinkedIn. It's, as I described earlier, it's entertaining, it's educational. I always learn something every time. So
I
thank you for
appreciate that.
doing
Well,
all of
I'll
that.
welcome the listeners to look me up, connect with me, give me a
Yeah,
shout.
they won't
Yeah,
regret it. Yeah.
cool.
All
Thank you,
right,
Greg. I
Greg. Well,
appreciate that.
thank you very much. IMA, or as I said, EMA, Ippolito Media Arts. Greg,
Correct.
thanks for being with the Trailblazers again.
Literally anytime. I love it.